Let me go on to the next topic, the assignment. This is a section 1.1. This is our contract is very, very favorable to the buyer. Basically, it gives the buyer the right to assign the contract. It doesn't release the buyer. The sentence in the contract is basically declarative of existing law. In other words, contracts are assignable and the assignor is not released. From the seller's perspective, the seller may require an assumption by an assignee, and in fact, the law is that a buyer who wants to sue for specific performance has to assume the contract. So the assumption is not in the contract. You can add that. The seller can also absolutely prohibit an assignment. And one of the things that burns sellers is if a buyer makes an assignment and makes money on flipping the contract. And that gives the sellers a lot of remorse because they see somebody who, for example, didn't own the property as long as they did. Now they made a hefty profit over a short period of time. So a lot of sellers would try to prohibit the assignment. If you do prohibit the assignment, then you got to deal with, are you going to permit some kind of assignment? And then what's the standard that's going to be applicable to seller giving the consent? Is it going to be arbitrary or reasonable? If there is seller financing, then there may be a separate independent justification for the seller to want to require that the buyer obtain the seller's consent for the buyer to assign the contract, because the seller may not want to finance anybody, even though there is, in California, we have the one action rule and we have the anti-deficiency statutes, which basically gross summary of it, if the seller can only sue for, can only foreclose on the property, I can't sue for the buyer for any deficiency if the buyer doesn't pay the loan. Our contracts provide the seller with the right to approve of a buyer's credit and financials in case there's seller financing. A typical carve-out for buyer to be able to assign is to its affiliates, for example, an LLC that's owned by the same principals that are transacting to buy the property.